Reset Podcast. And now your host, Jake Naraki.
What is up, Reset Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Operation Self Reset. You are here because you want to reprogram your mindset to upgrade your life. That is correct. And today we're going to be doing a little reprogramming when it comes to emotional feelings and heartaches, when it comes to mindset and getting over internal holdings, I guess we'll go with. We're speaking with Jamie Smart, and he wrote a #1 bestseller called Clarity. It's a deep conversation. It's a very interesting conversation. And to go along with this quick interview, it's actually not too quick. It's like 40-minute interview. On the backside of this interview, I have a story. I actually went out to a seminar I flew into San Jose. It was in Santa Clara, California, a beautiful part of the country. And I want to talk about some of the things that I encountered on the trip and how I used the tips from Jamie Smart to kind of allow myself to be me, because there's nobody better than you. So with that out of the way, we have a quote today. This comes from Deanna from Ohio. Thank you, Deanna, for sending this in. Even though I'm not a Buckeye fan, I'm a Wisconsin Badger fan, and the Buckeyes are known to be good in athletics. I'm still going to read this because I am an equal opportunity quote reader. The quote goes like this. It's actually kind of funny. If you think you have it tough, read history books. That is pretty darn funny. You know, if you think about it for a second, people are like, you know what, let's get out of Europe. All right, cool, let's go on a boat. All right, how long do we have to go on a boat for? Yeah, it's going to be like 4 months or something. 4 months? My God. All right, fine, I'll go on the boat. Then they take 4 months of just eating apples and bread, and then you get some weird disease, foot fungus, your teeth are falling out, there's no fresh water, everybody's killing each other in their sleep. Then you finally make it ashore. You're like, yes, we made it. We made it to America. Look at us. And then you look at the land in front of you, and it's full of rocks, stone, trees, bushes. There's no hotels. There's no restaurants. You got to kill the food to eat it. You got to build a fire. You got to build out your shelter. My God, that was one heck of a time period. So it's a pretty funny, true quote. You know, if you think you have it tough right now, imagine yourself back, even back in the Roman times. I mean, geez. You know, the only way to entertainment was people killing each other. You know, I guess we call that now the UFC. At least it's a little more humane. But right, regardless, this has nothing to do with Operation Self Reset. So I'm sorry about that little tangent. Let's get into the interview with Jamie Smart from Clarity. Listen to this interview in detail. It's not tricky. It dives a little deeper than I think we've had on here before, because there's a lot of layers to finding your own clarity in life. So here's the interview with Jamie Smart. Make sure to stick at the end of the interview for my own personal story, and we'll see you at the end of this conversation. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have on Jamie Smart. He wrote a book called Clarity, the international #1 bestseller. I'm so happy to have him on today. He's going to be talking about clearing your mind to get better performance and bigger results. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's great to be here, Jake. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. And, you know, the way I heard about you was kind of just a general search online. I saw the book that you wrote, which truly I am going to be benefiting from this talk probably more than anybody else, because I started this company, Operation Self Reset, and I'm trying to find clarity within it. I think I'm on the right path, but I need to kind of straighten it out a little more to really dial it in and to get the most, get the most help for others that they're tuning in to not only this podcast, but what I'm trying to put out there on the blog and the website. And, before we get into that, though, why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, kind of your background story, and how did you get interested in clarity?
Sure. Well, so I grew up on the west coast of Canada, in Vancouver and Victoria, British Columbia. And when I was 20, I moved to the UK, to England. And I've lived in the UK ever since. And my background is doing like project management for large organizations and that sort of thing. But here's the thing, Jake, I always kind of felt like I just fell into my work and it wasn't what I was passionate about, but I didn't know what I was passionate about.
Sure.
And I kind of felt kind of trapped and all that sort of stuff. And in 1998, I went on a 2-day personal development course with a thing called NLP. And it blew my mind. I had some really big insights, and I quit my job a couple of weeks later to transition into training people and working with others, being a coach, being a trainer. Now, that transition, I worked as a contractor doing the project management stuff. But by 2001, I was running my own consultancy, doing executive coaching and training and team building and vision and strategy, that sort of thing. Did that for a couple of years, then set up an NLP training business, which I ran for 10 years, called Salad. I sold that last year after we built it into the biggest NLP product business in the world. But a strange thing happened. So in 2008, I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, which you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
Tim Ferriss book. So I read that and I thought, because I was feeling kind of lost in my business, I thought, this is it. I've got to get my business running on autopilot so I can go and have adventures around the world, and then I will truly be fulfilled. So I did it. And my first mini retirement was to go skiing for 3 months. So I go off skiing. 6 weeks in, I was like bored and unfulfilled and bothered. And I was like, something's wrong with this, because based on the rules of my industry, I'm living the dream.
Right.
I should be totally happy and inspired and feeling successful. Well, I had the external circumstances of success. I had rich external circumstances, but I wasn't having an internal experience of success. And so I had to go back to the drawing board. So I spent a ton of money hiring someone to coach me for a year. And he started out by saying, well, let's have a look at your goals. So I wrote this list, my top 10 goals, gave it to him, and he went through them. And he started asking me, why do you want this? Why do you want this goal? Why do you want that goal? Why do you want the other? And so the goals around money, well, I wanted that for freedom and security. The goals around, going and doing, powder skiing in Kathmandu, I wanted that for feelings of adventure and excitement and feelings of, the next goal was love and connection, that sort of thing. But he said, you're looking for the outside world to give you things that you can only get from inside. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, Jake, it turned out that my entire game plan for success and my game plan for life was built on a misunderstanding. So I had to go back to the drawing board. So I started looking in a new direction. And what I've discovered is that there's a fundamental misunderstanding that we all get caught up in. And if you can see through that misunderstanding, then you get clarity. And you know what to do, and you know how to do it, and you're guided by an inner sense of wisdom and that sort of thing. But it does mean looking in a new direction. So that's what inspired me to write this book. I literally called up Nikki, who runs my business with me. This is back in 2009. I said, Nikki, we're getting out of the NLP business because there's something new, and there's something new that I hadn't even seen until now, but this is where our future is. So that's where we're going. And so the transition that you mentioned, Jake, I've been through similar transitions, not just once, but on, the most recent one was, I guess, 6 years ago, when I turned my back on an incredibly successful business and said, I'm going in a new direction. And so clarity is that new direction. And what I found working with my clients over the last 5 years with this new understanding is they have the same kind of experience, that as they get a better understanding of how our minds work and how our experience works, your mind clears and you have what you need to deliver the goods.
And you brought us some you really went through your own little reset in different kind of chapters of your life. And the first one I want to tackle with you is, not only have you quit, your job, you went into NLP, and NLP, if you wouldn't mind explaining to the listener, Neuro-linguistic programming. Yes, thank you.
This is a kind of, it has some relationships to like positive psychology and cognitive behavioral stuff. It's a cognitive model basically for helping people change their thinking. And so when I got to NLP, that was the best thing I'd ever seen for helping people get what they wanted in life and get the thinking and the feeling and the results they wanted. And it worked well, but nevertheless, by 2008, I was one of the world leading experts on NLP.
Sure.
And I still wasn't having that rich internal experience of life. And the reason the issue wasn't with NLP. The issue was that everything I did was built on a fundamental misunderstanding. And Jake, as I look around, I see lots and lots of people, lots of individuals, lots of businesses, entire societies struggling with the same misunderstanding. But the cool thing is, you see through it, everything gets better.
How did you understand that, though? Like, there's a lot of people caught in their jobs right now and they don't feel those emotions that you felt, with the NLP business. It was very successful. You're making good income. I mean, truly, you had something great. You could have sat back and cashed that cow until you decided to sell it off later in life, but you decided to take action on those feelings. Where did those feelings come from? Were you always one to understand, the things that were going wrong with your body? Were you always in touch with your inner self? I guess, I'm just looking for a deeper meaning of, I just decided to drop that, great number one ranked company I made and go into something I have no idea what I'm looking for,
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And answer to your question about, was I always in touch with that stuff? Far from it. Like when I was, so just to give you a bit of background, I used to be a really problem drinker. I had a serious problem with alcoholism. And so until 96, drinking was my number one strategy for dealing with stress, for dealing with anxiety, for dealing with lack of confidence.
Sure.
And alcohol I found to be an incredibly valuable technique for helping me clear my mind and feel
that is a technique, yeah.
Feel more relaxed. It was a very, very, very powerful one. But there was a huge cost to it. It was, it was messing up my relationships. It was messing up, all kinds of things in my life. And so in 96, I stopped drinking, and I had to get into recovery. And I started, building a life that wasn't. But here's the thing back then that I didn't realize was that alcohol was my best shot at the time for dealing with the misunderstanding that I'm talking about. Huh. See, if I was to sum it up in a nutshell, the misunderstanding, and this may sound strange to people when I say it like this, but the misunderstanding is the mistaken belief that our feelings come from somewhere outside of us, that our feelings come from something other than the power of thought taking form moment to moment. Now, what do I mean by that? If you ask people what's going on for them, a lot of them will say, well, I'll get there one day. I'll be happy when I get the new job, or I find my ideal partner, or I find when I get the house, or I'll feel secure once I've got enough money in the bank, or once I get a stable relationship, or once I get a full-time contract, or I'll feel a sense of love and connection once I find Mr. Right or Miss Right or whatever. It really looks and seems to people like our feelings can come from something out there. Or the opposite. They say, I couldn't handle it if I lost my job or if my partner left me. I couldn't handle that it would hurt me so much. It looks to us like our feelings come from outside of us in some way, either outside of us in space from another person or something like that, or from outside of us in time. It seems like they're coming from our future. They're coming from the past, but it's a total illusion. Now, can I give you a really specific example of this?
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay, so if you lots of little kids have what they call transitional objects, like a teddy bear or a blanket or something like that. And that the little kid, 2 years old, they believe that their feelings of security and well-being come from that teddy bear, come from that blanket. And so much so that if they go on holiday and they leave it behind, they're like inconsolable or whatever. Well,
Sure.
Well, we know that it doesn't actually work that way. The teddy bear isn't transmitting feelings into them. All those feelings of security or happiness or coziness or whatever are being generated by the child's mind, but it appears to them like it's coming from the teddy bear or the blanket or whatever. Well, so we can see that in the case of a kid. It's an optical illusion. It's a trick of the mind. Right. But we don't see it when we grow up and those teddy bears or cars or girlfriends or boyfriends or partners or jobs or money. But those are just more examples of that teddy bear. Yeah. They're just grown-up examples of the teddy bear. Now, here's the thing. Why do we believe it? Because that's how it looks. That's in the old days, Jake, they used to believe that the sun went around the earth because it looks like it does. It really, like to me, if it's ever sunny in the UK, it looks like the sun's going around the earth. We even say sunrise and sunset, but it absolutely doesn't work that way. It never has. The earth has always gone around the sun. The idea that the sun goes around the earth is an optical illusion. It's a trick of the mind. And the idea that our feelings of well-being and peace of mind and clarity come from outside of us, that's a trick of the mind. It's 100% illusion. It absolutely does not work that way.
Sure. And going off that teddy bear thing, I can see exactly what you're saying. We want the fancy phones, the fancy cars, the big house, the big lifestyle, because that's our teddy bear. And I can understand exactly where you're coming from. But how does that, are you saying that we should break away from that? Are you saying that we should identify that we don't need these teddy bears to feel fulfilled? Is that what you're trying to portray?
Here's
in clarity.
It's yes and no. It's subtly different. Have whatever you want. I mean, I love having a car. I love having a girlfriend. I love having my computer.
Sure.
I love being able to buy things and go places and all that sort of stuff. And I love spending time with my kids or my friends, and I enjoy it and I get nice feelings when I'm doing that. But understanding how it works and how it doesn't work does something for you. So when you know where your experience is coming from, you're much less likely to get tricked by your thinking. So for instance, if you go into a company where a lot of people are getting laid off, for instance, there will be a bell curve of how people respond to getting laid off. At one end of the bell curve, people's response to getting laid off will be like their life is over, they're depressed, they're miserable, they can't handle it, the transition totally freaks them out. At the other end of the spectrum, you'll have people who are buoyant. They're like, oh, well, these things happen to everybody. I'll find something will work out. The only difference is the people who are really struggling are believing that their feelings of security and well-being were coming from the job. And the people who are at the other end of the spectrum know on an intuitive level that those feelings of well-being and security come from within. And the irony of it is, those people who know that their feelings of security and well-being and clarity and resilience come from within, they'll find it much easier to get another job or to start a new business or to, do whatever it is that comes to them, because they're tapped into that deeper intelligence that's within all of us. Even the fact that someone's listening to this, if you're listening to this, and you're interested in transition in some way, that means you're on some level, you're tuned in to a current within you that's pointing you in a new direction, pointing you in towards a new kind of life or a new kind of work or whatever it might be. Well, that current of transition, that new direction, that the intelligence behind that is something that we're all connected up to. Now, you could call that life, or you could call that your inner wisdom, or you could call that nature, or you could call it whatever you like. But that is an incredible intelligence that every one of us has within us.
Go on. Sorry.
No, feel free.
No, I was just going to say, that inner feeling like that, that's why I really started this project. Growing up, my father, laid on all the personal development tapes and books and all that stuff. And over time, I never really took hold of that. But then recently I was like, you know what? I always had this intuition to want to public speak. I want to be a motivational speaker, and so I finally decided to take action on that. It was an internal gut feeling that I had. I figured it out by just doing some, going to seminars, talking to people, reading different stuff, traveling, inventions, all this stuff. And I followed that gut instinct. How do you, though, suggest to somebody that may or may not have that gut feeling, but they know that they have a bigger purpose or they should be striving for something, but they don't want to leave that comfort job, that situation that they're in? How do you tell them to break out and to trust that feeling?
Well, I love that question. So the starting point is to get a better understanding of how your mind works, where your experiences are coming from, and who you really are. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? So I'm not saying to someone, if you're listening to this, if you've got that feeling, you should quit your job. That would be a terrible idea. I see lots of people do that, and it works out really badly for them.
Right.
But here's the thing. So as soon as you realize that your well-being and security doesn't come from your job, then you can make a much better decision about whether to stay with it, how long to stay with it, all that kind of stuff. When you believe that your happiness, your well-being, your security, your freedom comes from your job, just as for instance, then making any decision to leave that is sort of like doing it with a gun to your head. It's kind of scary.
Right.
But the moment you realize that your happiness, your security, your well-being, your resilience comes from within, then you kind of settle down. You get more philosophical about things. Yeah, more in tune. Once you're more in tune, you're much more likely to be able to follow that inner wisdom or intuition or gut feel. Like everyone has that. Everyone has that inner wisdom, intuition, gut feel, call it what you will. But when we're caught up in our thinking, when we're freaked out because of worries about work or bills or whatever it is that people have got on their mind, it's not so easy to be guided by that. So it's interesting. I was out for a walk in the woods today, and we bumped into a friend of my girlfriend's, and this woman's been doing a job for quite some time, and she said, "Yeah, I'm just not ready to leave yet." But she said, "But I can feel something within me telling me that there's something new for me to do,
right.
Something new for me to do." And I said, "Well, just out of curiosity, what if you didn't have to have the plan? What if you just had to take the next step? What would you do?" Because a lot of times what I find is that people, they think that they need to have the whole plan worked out before they can take the next step. Whereas often the next step is calling someone or writing up your resume or,
organizing your thoughts. Right.
Organize your thoughts.
Yeah,
or like a lot of times people will think they've got to start a whole big thing. Whereas it's like, oh no, you can just test something out. Have a go at something. See what happens. There's all kinds of things you can do when you fall out of your thinking about how you think it's all got to be. Now, what I'm going to pull this back to is, again, the thing that gets in people's way is this misunderstanding about where our experience is coming from. And I refer to it as the outside-in misunderstanding, because not only does it often look like our experiences our feelings are coming from what's happening out there in our circumstances, or out there in the past, or out there in the future. It really seems that way, but it doesn't work that way. And when a person is believing it works that way, that actually gets in their way. It interferes with their clarity and with their creativity and with their well-being. So the most important thing that someone can do is get a better understanding of where your experience is coming from. And can I give a kind of metaphor for this? Because I know this may sound a little kind of abstract, but so I want to kind of nail it down. Well, I don't know if you know this, but as recently as the 1840s, like that's 170 years ago,
right?
People didn't know about germs and bacteria. They knew that illness and disease was caused by bad smells. and they called it miasmas. And because they didn't know about germs and bacteria, doctors routinely made people more ill than they would have been without anyone intervening. So like doctors would operate on people using dirty scalpels and stuff like that.
Jeez.
And innocently would infect them. And they just didn't know about it. They didn't know. Their ignorance killed people and led to misery and suffering. Well, does it stand to reason, Jake, that like a 12-year-old from today, if they went back to the 1840s, they could tell people about something that would have a bigger impact on the health of everyone than the best doctors in the field at the time?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, just by knowing a fact about how life already works, it could transform the lives of millions. And in fact, the fact that we're even able to have this conversation today is probably down to the fact that people know about germs and bacteria. Well, by the same token, a child from 200 years into the future from now, if they came back today, if they knew a fact about psychology that we don't know today, that could transform the psychological experience of everyone on the planet. And so what I'm pointing to is that you don't have to wait for that kid from 200 years from now to invent time travel, because what I'm pointing to is a fact about how our experience works that's just as much a fact as germs and bacteria are, just as much a fact as the fact that the earth goes around the sun, a fact about how life works, about how our experience works, about where our experience comes from. And if you start to glimpse that fact, if you start to see it for yourself, your head will clear and you'll be more in tune with your wisdom. And then if you've already got that kind of gut feeling of there's something I want to do or something I want to transition into, when's the right time for me to quit my job, or is it the right thing to do? All of a sudden, you'll start to cultivate that wisdom, that inner guidance that lets you tune into the right time to do it, or how to do it, or the right way forward. See, a lot of times I'll find that people, they're wanting to quit their job and move on because they feel they feel trapped, or they feel ground down by their current work. They see this understanding. Well, for lots of people, when they start to get this, they go, oh my God, I realized that my work is actually an amazing training ground for me to develop the skills that I want to use when I do transition. So all of a sudden, funnily enough, I was talking to a client the other day, and this person's been looking in this direction for a few months, and he suddenly saw that his work, which he had been thinking about as a trap or as a place he just had to get away from, he suddenly realized that it's a huge opportunity for him to create the foundations for the new business and the new life he wants to build. And he's like, oh man, I'm really glad I didn't quit, because as it stands, I can stay there another chunk of time and actually get paid to learn while I give them value and create my new business. Yeah. So it's seeing how it already works.
Right.
It's gonna do something for you.
Right. You know, it's interesting you brought that up, because I think a lot of people feel trapped and they look at the problems that this job is creating them. But once they figure out maybe that new journey or that new path, and it doesn't have to be job related. Maybe it's just figuring out a new way to enjoy time with your friends or family, find relationships. Once you start putting those feelings and those ideas off to the side, and opens up your bigger perspective, and you start understanding your passion or the purpose of your life, you can start utilizing the tools that are around you. And I think that's really powerful in that, because sometimes people feel that their job is holding them back, but in actuality, it could be putting them in a better spot because of it.
Well, exactly. I mean, the reality for you right now, wherever you are, the reality is you are where you are. And let's assume that where you are right now is the very best place to be standing in order to take the next step and the next step and the next step that's going to get you to somewhere wonderful. Right. Now, the interesting thing is that the kind of stuff we're talking about, pressure, feeling trapped versus freedom versus enjoyment and that sort of stuff, all of that is mind generated. And I'll give you an example of that. There's a guy, a soccer player in the UK, so professional soccer player, called Daniel Sturridge. And he'd been playing for this club called Liverpool and not doing that great. They'd bought him for like £12 million, which is about $20 million.
Yeah.
A ton of cash.
It's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. And he was experiencing pressure and wasn't playing that well. Well, then last May, he plays against this other team and he scores a hat trick, 3 goals against this other team, comes into his dressing room after the game holding a copy of my book, Clarity. And he's been interviewed since, and he says he doesn't feel pressure anymore. Doesn't feel pressure anymore. And that's something I hear from a lot of my clients, because as you start to see how this works, you realize that pressure is mind-made. It doesn't come from your job or your boss or the deadlines or the targets. The feeling of pressure is mind-made. The feeling of stress is mind-made. It's, unhealthy stress is a simple misunderstanding about where our experience is coming from. Can I give you a kind of technique to demonstrate this?
Wait, I thought we weren't going to be talking about techniques.
You'll like this one.
Okay, all right.
I thought I'd pull the shuffle on you.
Perfect.
So do me a favor, and for you listening along to this, do this along with us, even though it's a little bit silly. I want you to tap yourself on the forehead gently, like 5 or 10 times. Just tap yourself on the forehead with your hand. Now, I'm guessing if you've done that, it's not particularly bothersome or troubling. That's just, big deal.
Right.
But if someone else walked up to you and started doing it to you, that would be different, right?
Oh, yeah.
It would be troubling or bothersome. There would be a kind of feeling of threat in that in some way. The reason there's no threat when you do it to yourself is you know that it's you doing it.
Right.
And so while the sensations might be exactly the same, while the fact of it might be exactly the same, the felt experience of it is different because you know that it's you doing it. And it's the same with pressure. It's the same with stress. It's the same with the feeling of feeling trapped in a job. The moment you realize that it's not coming from the job, that it's coming from you, the whole thing changes. And that's true whether it's a job or a relationship.
That's good. Yeah.
Or anything. The moment you realize that those feelings, that experience is coming from thought taking form in the moment, it's coming from inside you. It's not coming from the situation. It's coming from the principle of thought. And when I say the principle of thought, I mean, I'm talking about like an energy. Like as soon as we talk about things like thought or consciousness, we're into very, very slippery territory. So I'm thinking of it like an energy, like gravity is a force. It's a principle. It's something that already exists. It existed before we were born. It'll exist after we're gone. It's a fact of life.
Sure. But how do we control that? Like, how do we okay, now that we discovered that the pressure, the internal fear, the awkwardness, all the emotions, you named the situation, there's emotions that go along with it that we're putting on ourselves internally. How do we remove that to start scoring those goals, to perform better, to become the personal best that we can?
Well, that's the cool thing, Jake. The moment you realize that it's coming from you, and it's not.
It brings the clarity out with just naturally.
You don't have to do anything about it. I'll give you a specific personal example of this. So I got back from holiday, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or something like that, and I'd been really looking forward to getting back to work. So holiday was really fun, but it was beginning of the year. I was really excited about what we were going to be doing and all that sort of stuff. So I wake up for my first day back at work. And I was feeling really crappy. I woke up on the wrong side of bed. And I was feeling really, really crappy and really unmotivated and really down. And I don't know about you, but if I'm feeling really crappy, I often choose those moments to start doing an evaluation of my life. And so I did a quick evaluation of my life. It's like, oh God, my life sucks.
Sure.
Sucks. And whenever I'm feeling
guilty,
crappy, I evaluate my life. It never looks good. So I'm doing and pretty soon I'm getting concerned. I'm like, oh, geez, I got to do something about this. I've got to fix this. So I'm about to start making an action plan for fixing my terrible life. When I suddenly my wisdom kicks in, and it goes, hey, you're feeling crappy. That's coming from thought. That's not coming from your life. That's where your head's at. That's not where your life's at. That's where your head's at. I was like, oh my God, I got tricked by my thinking. Now, I teach this for a living, but I still get tricked by my thinking from time to time. I get tricked by my thinking. So I know better than to try and muck around with my head to try and make it better. I just go, oh, okay, good. It's not as bad as I thought. It's just my thinking. And so I got on with doing some menial tasks. If I'm feeling bad, I know I shouldn't make any important phone calls or write any sensitive emails or anything like that. They don't come out good. So I start doing some tasks. And half an hour in, my wisdom kicks in again and says, do some exercise. So I stop my work. I go and I do some kettlebells for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. By the time I'd finished doing kettlebells, I'd totally forgotten that I was feeling bad. And I got on with my day and I had a great day. Now, I'm not saying, the answer is exercise, because wisdom will always give you a context-sensitive answer that's right for you in the moment. But the first step is to see where your experience is coming from. When it looked like my experience was coming from my terrible life, then the sensible thing to do was to start running around like a headless chicken and making an action plan to fix it. Right. But fortunately, before I did that, and screwed things up even more, wisdom kicked in and said, hey, it's not coming from your life. It's coming from your thinking. The moment you see it's your thinking, the whole game changes.
And I think the point that maybe you hit upon, but it really brought out within myself is self-talk, identifying your feelings. I think that's a huge point that you hit there, understanding, why are you feeling crummy? Why do you feel depressed and lonely and ashamed and angry and all those feelings? I think the key is to really identify, to sit down and evaluate yourself and to kind of have that internal battle with yourself. And once you do that self-talk, it'll start to understand, okay, it was just in my thoughts. I'm just feeling that way for no reason. I need to identify it, and now I need to resolve it and move past it.
Well, now here's where what I'm saying is subtly but profoundly different. What I'm saying is the feeling is telling you exactly what's in your thinking. If you've got sad feelings, then you've got sad thinking. If you've got happy feelings, you've got happy thinking. If you've got angry feelings, then that's angry thinking. Your feelings aren't telling you about the world. Your feelings are telling you about this energy of thought taking form moment to moment. And here's the cool thing, Jake. That energy of thought, it's kind of like the weather. If you know that it's not connected to anything in your circumstances, it's just a fluid, momentary thing, and you don't get hooked into it, new thinking's going to show up, because we're all connected up to a source of fresh, useful new thinking. If you don't latch onto a thought, a new one's going to come along any minute. So the moment you see that, it's sort of like, do you drive a car? Yeah, you live in the US. You must drive a car. Everyone drives a car. Yeah. So your engine warning light, it's telling you about your engine. It's not telling you about the other cars. It's telling you about your engine. Well, your feelings are like your engine warning light telling you about your thinking. They're like the rumble strips at the edge of the highway. They're telling you, like, let me give you another example, Jake. If you touch a hot stove or an open flame, the pain tells you to pull your hand back, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's called a pain withdrawal response. Well, your feelings are telling you when you've got hot thinking. And if your feelings are getting painful, whether it's stress or pressure or something like that, that's telling you to ease off your thinking, to back off that whatever to look in the other direction. The other direction being, look away from what looks so real in your thinking towards the fact that our thinking is always being generated from within.
So you think that's a good idea to feel these feelings, but yet not to identify them and search why, is more just to push it off and move forward and try to force yourself not to think about those feelings. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes and no. And
Okay.
It's subtle what I'm pointing to. So forgive me if I'm well, I'll just race ahead with it. What I'm saying is the moment you realize that there is a one-to-one match between thought and feeling, as soon as you go, why am I feeling this way? Then you're going to generate more thinking. And the only thing see, here's the thing. Very interesting, Jay. You want to be a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about motivational speaking. If you look at if you take anyone who's a nervous public speaker, an uncomfortable public speaker, ask them what they're thinking about on stage. And they'll say, well, I'm thinking about the audience. I'm thinking, what do they think of me? Does my bum look big in this? Am I going to forget what to say? I'm wondering, oh God, what if I I'm not coming across well? They're thinking about a ton of stuff. You ask someone who's a really good public speaker, what are you thinking about when you're on stage? You know what they say?
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing.
Clear-minded.
Nothing.
Right. Okay.
Nothing on your mind. When you've got nothing on your mind, you have what you need to deliver the goods. A clear mind is like a universal resource for every single situation. You got a clear mind, you're going to get the thoughts you need to deliver high performance in every aspect of life. So a clear mind is like if you're on a date and it's going really well and you're feeling really connected to the other person, I guarantee you got nothing on your mind. As soon as you go, oh, I wonder, do they like me? Or I wonder, where is it?
Yeah.
It's done. The connection's gone. So here's the thing. We're designed to have a clear mind. The clear mind is our default settings. That's our reset, is a clear mind. And the only thing that gets us out of a clear mind is this thing I call the outside-in misunderstanding. As soon as we believe our feelings are coming from out there, we're going to have a head full of thinking. And that's the last thing you need. But the moment you see that you're living in the feeling of the principle of thought, taking form moment to moment, your head starts to clear. When your head clears, you have what you need, whether it's the decision about the right way to move forward with your work, whether it's an insight about your sense of purpose and direction, whether it's an innovative idea for a new product or service you want to create. A clear mind is the number one universal resource we got going for us. And the biggest leverage point for having a clear mind, more of the time, is a better understanding of how our experiences generate. And that's what clarity is about. It's about how does that work? Because you see how that works, you're going to have a clear mind more of the time. When you got a clear mind more of the time, you're going to have what you need in every situation.
That's really powerful, and I'm sorry to question the way you want to run it. It's just something, because I know personally, and the people listening, it might be tough for some people to wrap their head around this. A clarity, release your thoughts and just think clearly, and everything will come to you. And it's tough because we're in a society, in a world where we have a million things thrown at us each and every day. We have the chatter, we have multiple things that are distracting us. It's tough to have a clear mind to figure out our next path. What do you say to a person that, has a big family, they, job from, they come home from a job, they cook dinner, then they go to their next job, so much going on. How can they find clarity within their day?
Now, see, that's a superb question. And here's what I can guarantee you, Jake. There are people out there right now, maybe even people listening to this. There are people out there right now who have exactly the circumstances you've just described, and they have no clarity at all most of the time. And there are other people who have exactly the circumstances you've described, and they have a lot of clarity.
Yeah,
on a day-to-day basis. So what's the difference between them? The difference is the ones who experience a lot of clarity have an implicit understanding of the inside-out nature of life. Now, what I mean by that is they intuitively know where their experience is coming from. So I'll give you an example. A buddy of mine, just through lucky accident of birth, he came into life with a high level of consciousness. So he knew if he was upset about something, he'd go, oh, well, I'll just sleep on it and I'm sure I'll feel better in the morning. Whereas if I was feeling really upset about something, I was sure that I was right. As soon as let me use a metaphor to set a. Can I take a couple of minutes to give you a metaphor for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So when we were all born, we didn't know anything about the principle of gravity. We didn't know about it, but we spent the first 5 years of our lives on a gravity crash course, literally learning all about gravity. And you understand gravity so well now, like you implicitly understand the fact of gravity, that you've applied gravity in 1,000 ways this week. Every time you walk up a flight of stairs, every time you drive your car, every time you pick up a cup or throw a ball to someone or lift any object up, you're applying your understanding of the fact of gravity. So by understanding the implications of gravity, the applications of it show up every day. So that's true wherever there's a fact of life. Same with germs and bacteria. Because you understand the fact of germs and bacteria, you know what to do if you drop your sandwich on the floor. You know how quickly you have to pick it up before you.
5 seconds.
Yeah, you got 5. Oh, you got 5. It's only 3 seconds in the UK.
Oh, 3 seconds. Okay.
Here. So that's by understanding the fact of how it already works. So what I'm suggesting is that the better you understand the fact of how your mind works, the more automatically the applications of that will show up every day. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting to hear your point of view, because I'm a big believer in mindset. All of the things that happen in our life, the things that come into your journey, your path, all starts with your mindset. What sets you up. And I think clarity is a tough thing to understand at first, but once you start getting, understanding your concepts and understanding the way that you present this information and realize the pressure, external pressure that you put on yourself is just, generated in your thoughts. It's a powerful tool to kind of understand that you are in control of your destiny. It just kind of proves to me that what I'm trying to portray through this podcast and website is very fundamental, and it can have a great effect on your life.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And sorry, go ahead, Jake. You were about to say something.
No, I was just kind of like nodding to myself, like, yeah, okay, now it's connecting for me, because for people that might be listening, it's tough. We're not used to this, but I know the people that are tuning in want to transform their life. They want to do better. Sure. And we kind of discussed how can those people get a control of their life and reset for a new path. And what you're trying to give here, the information through your book and through your studies and through all the stories, is that once you let go of that internal thought process, you can do a personal reset to guide you into different directions in your life.
Oh, you bet. And the only thing you need to let go of is a misunderstanding, a mistaken belief, literally a superstition. Like we're being told by marketeers and advertising and well-meaning friends and family over and over again that our feelings are coming from external stuff. But it absolutely is a superstition. It doesn't work that way. And the more you can see that, the more it's going to work out for you. And little kids are a great example of this. Little kids, they figure out they're creative, they're clear-headed. They get upset like everyone else, but their head's clear. They let go of grudges.
It's true.
They're creative, they're innovative, they're funny, they connect really easily, they're open-hearted, they're present, they're authentic. So all the qualities, Jake, that so many people struggle to kind of cultivate, those qualities like authenticity, purpose, direction, creativity, leadership, all those qualities, they're already there within every one of us. There are default settings. They're there for us naturally. And the only thing that gets in the way of them is this superstition, this misunderstanding. You see through the misunderstanding, you're going to start demonstrating the very qualities that people are trying to cultivate to have the kind of lives that you describe.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. We all have those qualities within. We just need to identify them and bring them out, because a leader is no different than myself or a captain. The chief officer of a naval ship. We're all leaders in our own demographic, in our own situations. And I think you're exactly right. It's all within. We just need to push the external pressures and ideas and thoughts out of the way so we can take action on those things.
You bet.
What does a self-reset mean to you, Jamie?
Well, I love that question. And what it means to me is that actually everything you want in terms of peace and joy, in terms of freedom and security, in terms of well-being and purpose and direction and destiny, that is your default settings. And what a reset is seeing through the misunderstandings that we've been trained in, that we've been habituated to, and realigning with who you really are, realigning with your true nature, realigning with the clarity and well-being that's already there within you, even if you can't see it. It's like it's a cloudy day here in England, but behind the clouds, the sun's still there. And it's the same with you. No matter what you think, all of those qualities are there within you, and the clouds of your habitual thinking are the only thing in the way. A self-reset is returning to who you really are.
Nice. That was good. That was really good, Jamie, man. Awesome. How can people get in touch with you and the book and learn more about Clarity?
Oh, great. Well, head over to Amazon to grab the book. But if you go to jamiesmart.com, you can download free audios, and there's links to the book there, and I got all my products there and that sort of thing. So Amazon or jamiesmart.com, either will do.
Awesome. Jamie, it's a very deep, it takes a little bit to think about it, to kind of wrap your head around this idea. But personally, even through this conversation, I was kind of questioning, I get it, but I think now it's really hit me, and it's really powerful because, I feel a lot of external things, and I realize it's just created by myself. And I think once you get over that initial hump, the possibilities are endless. So I appreciate you for sharing your studies on Clarity and obviously writing the book for other people to learn about the idea and the mindset that you have created. It's a different way to look at personal development, self-help, and I think you're onto something pretty cool, and I appreciate you for sharing it.
Oh, thank you, Jake. Well, it's great to talk to you, and you ask great questions, and I really love what you're up to here.
Awesome, Jamie. Well, I appreciate it. We'll keep in touch, and if you got a Clarity 2.0, hey, we'd love to have you back on.
Terrific.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks again to Jamie Smart for coming on the Operation Self Reset podcast. If you guys are interested in the book, head on over to Amazon and check it out, see if it fits your needs. But to get to my personal story, so after talking to Jamie, I'm like, okay, I got this, okay. All right, I understand I'm in control of my emotions, Nobody is putting pressure on me except myself. So I finally came to the realization of that. So I go out to the seminar, right? You get on the airplane, you fly out there, things are good. Went to the hotel, registered, all that fun stuff, saying hi, slapping high fives, all that cool stuff. I'm laying in bed, go to bed, obviously, because that's what you do when you go into your bed, you fall asleep. That morning I woke up, I was actually kind of nervous, and in a good way. I wasn't like nervous, like scared, but I knew there was going to be a lot of interaction with people I'd never met before. And so along with that, I knew I would have to be, bring in the true Jake Naraki out. I'd have to be laughing and smoking and joking and high-fiving, hugging, and all that stuff that I usually do because I'm a high-energy kind of guy. But I felt a little reserved. I felt a little nervous and, maybe I shouldn't be myself, all that stuff. So I took Jamie's approach and I realized that I am in control of that. And I imagined myself, this sounds really weird and crazy, but I don't even know how I thought of this. This is just what I went with. So when I was laying there in bed, I turned off my alarm. I'm just kind of like hanging out. I'm like, okay, gathering myself. And I had these emotions and butterflies and all that stuff. I thought of myself as a missile silo. You got this huge missile that's underground, and above it you have these the way that I interpreted it, or the way that I imagined myself, was these big doors that collapse on top of each other. They would rise up. It wasn't like it didn't slide back into the earth or anything. The doors would pop open, kind of like a Jack in the Box, if the missile was going to launch. Well, I realized, and the way that I got past this emotional issue was that I thought to myself, okay, I'm putting this stress on myself. I'm putting this nervousness on myself. I'm going to release it. And the way that I released it, I imagined these doors popping open and this pressure, this overwhelming feeling, the nervousness, I guess we'll go with, escaping into the atmosphere. And truly, it really worked. It sounds ridiculous and crazy, but that is the analogy that I use for myself. I mentioned I was a missile in a silo underground. And to relieve the pressure, to relieve the nervousness, I just imagined these doors opening up and that those feelings escaping into the atmosphere. Now, you can use whatever you feel is appropriate. I'm not saying use my analogy in any way, but I'm just saying that after I did that, I really felt good. I felt normal. I felt myself. And to be honest, I walked downstairs and I crushed it. I mean, I was meeting people. People love my energy. I didn't mind talking to strange people. It was just really a more of an enjoyable experience because I did not have that pressure inside. Sometimes you walk into a new environment and you kind of hold back a little bit, and that's natural. That's okay. But try to use the analogy that I use with the missile silo if you want, but it really helped me gain clarity on my emotions, and it really helps. So even though that interview may or may not have been complex for you, I don't know, I can't read your mind, but either way, that's what I gained out of it. I realized that I'm putting this emotional pressure on myself. I'm nervous because I'm doing that. There's nobody that's, in this room with me that's making me feel silly or, not, whatever. I don't know. So that was what I used. Use it if you want. Try something else, but realize that you put your own emotions on you. Nobody's doing that. You walking into the new situation, people aren't staring you down and going, man, I hope he feels uncomfortable. The only person that makes you feel uncomfortable is you. Once you get past that, dude, you're yourself. I mean, you're perfect. You can run around, high five, slap people on the butts, if you're used to be a football player, whatever. I don't know. That's your thing, So, guys, like always, thank you so much for hanging out with the Operation Self Reset podcast. If you want to win yourself one of 8 prizes, yes, you can win one of 8 prizes. Head on over to osreset.com/survey. There's 4 questions. And the 5th question is just to gather your email to send you one of the free prizes. May 1st, I will be doing a drawing, and I'm giving away 2 $25 Visa gift cards, 2 Audible.com gift cards for any Audible book that you want to listen to on the go. And also, I'm giving away 5 books. So head on over there, fill it out. It's 4 questions. It'll give me clarity on Operation Self Reset, and that's what I need. I really want to help you strive for the personal best that you can personally be, and the only way to do that is to understand you, to learn from you, because I'm only speaking into a microphone, looking at my computer. I have no idea if you even like this, or if you find it interesting or not, but I know there's a lot of hardcore, dedicated fans out there, like yourself, that's listening right now all the way to the end. So if you could do that for me, I will reward you with a prize. So, like always, you rock. Honestly, thank you so much for making Operation Self Reset a part of your life. If you're walking the dog, you're driving in the car, you're feeding your child, whatever it may be, thank you for listening to me, and I hope to keep you inspired, keep you motivated, and keep on wanting more out of life. Your reset is just a step away, and I hope to keep on giving it for you guys. So take care. Have a great rest of your week. Stay tuned for next week, Monday, for a motivational minute to get yourself started on the right foot for the week ahead. You guys rock. We'll catch you soon. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Operation Self Reset podcast. Find out more ways to reset at www.osreset.com.